My security company staged fake break-ins to sell upgrades. My own cameras caught them 3 months ago. I thought I was being smart by upgrading my home security. I work in cybersecurity, so I understand threats better than most people. What I didn't expect was for the threat to come from inside my own security company. When I finally caught them red-handed on my personal camera system, staging fake break-ins at my Phoenix home using master codes, I realized I'd been living through a nightmare that was completely manufactured. It started innocently enough. My wife Lindsay and I had just moved into our dream house in North Phoenix, one of those gorgeous southwestern-style homes with terracotta tiles and desert landscaping that screams Arizona living. The neighborhood felt safe, but Lindsay had been reading too many Nextdoor posts about package theft and break-ins. She kept bringing up horror stories from her yoga class about people coming home to ransacked houses. So when the Secure Home Solutions rep knocked on our door during a Saturday afternoon barbecue, I figured it was worth hearing him out. Brad Collins looked professional enough. Pressed khakis, company polo, tablet in hand with all the latest security stats for our zip code. He wasn't pushy like those solar panel guys who camp out on your doorstep. Instead, he casually mentioned how many of our neighbors had already signed up after recent incidents in nearby Scottsdale. The basic package seemed reasonable at $2,000. Door sensors, window alarms, motion detectors, and a control panel that connected to their monitoring center. Brad explained how their system would immediately alert both us and the police if anything triggered during our scheduled away times. Lindsay loved the smartphone app that would let her check the status from her marketing job downtown. I appreciated the technical specs and the fact that installation would only take half a day. 2 weeks later, Tyler showed up for installation. Kid looked barely old enough to drink, but he knew his stuff. Spent 4 hours carefully placing sensors, running wires, and explaining how everything worked. He programmed our master code, showed us how to set different zones, and tested each component twice. The system seemed solid, and the monthly monitoring fee of $49 felt like cheap insurance for our peace of mind. Update. Honestly thought I was being paranoid at first when weird stuff started happening. Should have trusted my cybersecurity instincts from day one instead of giving them benefit of the doubt. Anyone else ever had their gut tell them something was off but ignored it because everything seemed professional? For the first month, everything worked perfectly. The system armed and disarmed smoothly, the app notifications came through reliably, and Lindsay felt much more comfortable leaving for her evening book club meetings. I traveled occasionally for work conferences, and knowing our house was protected gave both of us real peace of mind. But then strange things started happening that made no sense from a security perspective. The first incident occurred on a Tuesday evening in November while we were having dinner at Lindsay's sister's place in Tempe. My phone buzzed with a motion alert around 8:30, but when I checked the app, it showed the system had been disarmed just minutes before. That was impossible. Neither Lindsay nor I had touched our phones, and we were the only ones with the codes. When we got home around 10, the front door was standing wide open. Not damaged, not forced, just open like someone had walked right through and forgotten to close it behind them. Nothing was missing, not the 75-inch Samsung in the living room, not Lindsay's jewelry box on the bedroom dresser, not even the MacBook Pro I'd left charging on the kitchen counter. The house looked exactly as we'd left it except for that door. Brad showed up the next morning to investigate, acting genuinely concerned and apologetic. He spent an hour checking all the sensors and running diagnostics on the control panel. His explanations sounded technical enough. Something about electromagnetic interference from nearby cell towers causing random disarm signals. He recommended upgrading to their premium package for better signal filtering and redundant backup systems. $8,000 seemed steep for what he was describing, especially when our current system had worked fine for weeks. I told him I needed time to think about it, maybe get a second opinion from another company. Brad nodded understandingly, but mentioned they were running a limited-time promotion that would expire by month's end. Lindsay wasn't satisfied with my decision to wait. She'd been rattled by coming home to an open door, and Brad's technical explanation only made her more nervous about electromagnetic interference and system failures. She started double-checking locks obsessively and asking me to review the security app every time she left the house. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time I was working late at my home office when motion alerts started flooding my phone around midnight. The system showed multiple zone triggers throughout the house, then suddenly went offline completely. When I ran downstairs to investigate, I found furniture moved around in the living room. Couch cushions on the floor, coffee table shifted 3 feet from its original position, kitchen chairs pulled away from the table. Again, nothing was actually stolen. The disturbance looked random and pointless, like someone had wandered through just to mess with our stuff. The front door was locked this time, but the back sliding door to our patio was unlatched. Our German Shepherd mix, Rex, was cowering in his crate instead of barking or defending the house like he normally would with strangers. Brad arrived within an hour of my emergency call, which seemed impressive until I later realized how convenient his timing was. He examined the scene with what appeared to be professional concern, taking photos and making notes on his tablet. His explanation this time involved more sophisticated technical language about signal jamming and targeted electronic attacks on security systems. The premium package suddenly seemed less like a sales pitch and more like a necessity. Brad showed me reports about increasing crime rates in North Phoenix, particularly sophisticated break-ins where criminals used electronic devices to disable basic security systems. The $8,000 upgrade included military-grade encryption, cellular backup systems, and advanced motion sensors that couldn't be fooled by jamming devices. Lindsay was ready to sign immediately. She'd barely slept since the second incident and had started researching home invasions online, filling her head with worst-case scenarios. She pointed out that we'd spent more than $8,000 on landscaping without questioning it, so why hesitate over our safety and security? But something felt wrong to me on a fundamental level. In my cybersecurity work, I'd seen plenty of manufactured crises designed to sell expensive solutions. The timing was too convenient, the explanations too complex, and Brad's responses too perfectly rehearsed. Most concerning was how Rex had reacted. Our dog knew everyone who'd been in our house for legitimate reasons, and he'd never cowered from actual intruders. Instead of upgrading with secure home solutions, I decided to install my own independent monitoring system. I ordered a set of wireless cameras from Amazon. Nothing fancy, just basic models that would record to cloud storage completely separate from our existing security setup. I positioned them strategically around the house where they wouldn't be obvious, but would capture anyone moving through our main living areas. The cameras arrived on a Friday, and I spent the weekend installing them while Lindsay was visiting her mother in Tucson. I didn't mention the additional system to her because I didn't want to worry her further, and I wasn't entirely sure what I was looking for anyway. Maybe I'd catch footage of a neighbor's cat triggering our motion sensors, or discover that our sliding door latch was faulty. 3 days after Lindsay returned, our house was broken into for the third time. I was attending a cybersecurity conference in Las Vegas when the alerts started flooding my phone Tuesday evening. But this time, I had 2 separate systems monitoring everything. The Secure Home app showed the familiar pattern, multiple motion triggers followed by system disconnection. But my personal cameras kept recording throughout the entire incident. What I saw on that footage changed everything. At 7:43 p.m., a familiar figure approached our front door. Tyler, the same installation technician who'd set up our original system, walked up to our entrance like he owned the place. He pulled out his phone, pressed something on the screen, and our front door's electronic lock clicked open immediately. He knew our master code because he'd programmed it himself months earlier. Tyler spent the next 20 minutes methodically creating the scene of a break-in. He moved furniture around, opened drawers and cabinets, scattered some papers on the floor. But he was careful not to actually damage or steal anything valuable. At one point, he stopped to pet Rex, who clearly recognized him and showed no signs of alarm or aggression. Most damning was what happened next. Tyler pulled out a small device that looked like a garage door opener and pointed it at our secure home control panel. The system immediately went offline, displaying the same communication error message we'd seen during previous incidents. He'd been remotely disabling our security system from the beginning. Before leaving, Tyler pulled out his phone again and made a call. I couldn't hear the audio clearly, but I could read his lips well enough to catch key phrases. He reported that the site was ready and that they should send Brad tomorrow morning as usual. The whole operation took less than 30 minutes. Tyler locked our front door behind him using the same master code and drove away in a Secure Home Solutions van that I'd seen parked in our neighborhood multiple times over the past month. Update. The footage was crystal clear. Couldn't believe how brazenly they operated. Had documentation of everything from the master code entry to the fake device disabling our system. Still processing how long this had been going on and how many neighbors might be getting scammed. Has anyone else noticed their security company showing up a little too quickly after incidents? I flew back from Vegas that night instead of staying for the conference's final day. Lindsay met me at Sky Harbor Airport, and during the drive home, I showed her the camera footage on my phone. She went through every emotion possible. Shock, anger, betrayal, and finally a cold fury that I'd never seen from her before. We spent hours that night reviewing everything that had happened over the past 2 months. The timing of Brad's visits, Tyler's convenient availability for emergency calls, even Rex's behavior suddenly made perfect sense. Our dog hadn't been cowering from intruders. He'd been confused about why people he trusted were making messes in his house. Wednesday morning, I called Detective Angela Moreno with the Phoenix Police Department's Fraud Division. She arrived at our house within 2 hours, and I could tell from her expression while watching the footage that this wasn't her first encounter with this type of scheme. Detective Moreno explained that they'd been investigating Secure Home Solutions for several months after receiving complaints from other homeowners about suspicious break-ins followed by aggressive sales tactics. What I'd captured on camera was the missing piece they needed, actual evidence of the company staging fake crimes to generate business. Detective Moreno asked if I'd be willing to participate in a controlled operation to gather additional evidence against the company. The plan was straightforward. I would schedule a meeting with Brad Collins to discuss the premium upgrade package, wearing a wire to record our conversation. Meanwhile, police would be monitoring Secure Home's dispatch communications and Tyler's movements to document their coordination. Friday afternoon, Brad arrived at our house with his usual professional demeanor and concerned expression. He reviewed photos of Tuesday's break-in and explained how the premium system would have prevented such an intrusion through advanced perimeter detection and encrypted communications. But when I started asking specific technical questions about electromagnetic interference and signal jamming, Brad's answers became increasingly vague and contradictory. He couldn't explain why our system had failed in ways that didn't match the technical specifications he'd provided earlier. When I pressed him about the timing of these incidents and his company's rapid response times, he became defensive and started pushing harder for an immediate decision on the upgrade. The conversation lasted 45 minutes, and Brad essentially confessed to everything without realizing it. He admitted that basic security systems were practically useless against determined criminals, that their monitoring center had been overwhelmed by recent incidents in our area, and that only premium customers received their priority response protocols. Detective Moreno and her team moved quickly once they had recorded evidence of the fraud scheme. Search warrants were executed simultaneously at Secure Home Solutions offices and Tyler's apartment that same evening. They discovered detailed records of over 100 homeowners who'd been targeted for fake break-ins over the past 3 years. The financial scope was staggering. Secure Home had generated more than $2 million in upgrade sales through their manufactured crisis strategy. They specifically targeted households with higher property values and homeowners who worked in professional fields, calculating that these customers were more likely to pay premium prices for perceived security upgrades. Tyler was arrested at his apartment while deleting files from his laptop. Brad Collins was taken into custody at the company's offices, where police found a sophisticated operation that included detailed neighborhood surveillance, customer psychological profiles, and even schedules coordinating fake break-ins with sales follow-ups. Both men were charged with multiple felonies including burglary, fraud, conspiracy, and psychological coercion. The district attorney's office indicated they would be seeking maximum sentences due to the systematic nature of the crimes and the number of victims involved. 6 months later, Brad Collins pled guilty to avoid trial and received 8 years in prison plus restitution orders. Tyler, who cooperated with prosecutors, got 4 years with the possibility of parole after serving half his sentence. Secure Home Solutions declared bankruptcy, but a victim compensation fund was established, using seized company assets and the founder's personal properties. Lindsay and I received our full refund plus damages for emotional distress. More importantly, we learned that we hadn't been paranoid or overreacting. Our instincts about something being wrong had been completely accurate. The case made national news and prompted investigations of similar security companies across the country. It turned out that manufactured crisis marketing was more common than anyone had realized, particularly in industries where fear drives purchasing decisions. We eventually installed a legitimate security system from a well-established company with verified references and transparent business practices. But the experience taught us that the biggest threats to our safety and security can sometimes come from the very people we trust to protect us. Rex still gets extra treats whenever strangers come to the house, and we've learned to trust his instincts about people as much as our own. Update. Case wrapped up better than expected. Full restitution plus compensation for what we went through. Companies completely shut down and founders lost everything. Still can't believe how long they were operating this scam right under everyone's noses. Makes you wonder what other professional services might be creating problems they're paid to solve. Would you have caught on sooner than I did?